Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Power Packed session with Christina today. Hi, Christina. I think Christina has a little sound issue. She's gonna join us back within a second. So we all are ready for the new Power Packed session. Okay, she is joining back. Friends, can you please turn on your cameras if possible?
Okay, testing sound, testing sound. Is it okay now? Uh-oh, I can't hear anything.
Good morning, Christina.
Good morning. How are you?
So we all are ready for another Power Packed session today.
Awesome. Okay, that's wonderful. Let me just
over
set
to
this
you
up
now.
a little bit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back. All right, so for those of you who are joining brand new, I just want to kind of backtrack a little bit so we're all on the same page here. My name is Christina, and I'm the acceleration expert. I've been asked to do this particular teaching because I've done studies with Barbara Handclough for many years when she was working with groups of people exploring the alchemy of the 9 dimensions. And through the work that we've done together over the decade or so, that served to her to bring together about 8 years in, she ended up writing finally Alchemy of the 9 Dimensions. The whole process was started with a book that she wrote called Pleiadian Agenda. So from 2002 to about 2011, I would go to Lilydale, New York every year to be a part of the group work that she would do. And one of the things I absolutely loved about her work was that it brought so much clarity and it enhanced my own intuitive perceptions and relationships to things. And of course, she introduced me to, let's say, non-corporeal interdimensional species relationships. So that's the relationships with the keepers of each of these dimensions that we talked about last week. So it all started with the Pleiadian Agenda. And at the time that came out, I was in transition in my life, and I happened to be freed up to study that particular work. It was just kind of synchronicity came into my lap, and that chapter out of the entire book just really landed with a very deep impact for me. And I knew I had to work with her. And of course, the universe synchronized for that to happen. I had young kids, so I really couldn't travel very far. And it just so happened Lilydale, New York was just a few hours drive from here. So I was able to drive there, spend the weekend, and drive back home. And it was a major, major aspect to my spiritual growth, as I said. So that my hopes for you guys here, exploring these dimensions in this introductory that we're doing, is that you benefit from that kind of clarity. This is like a roadmap to consciousness. So if you're a meditator or spiritual teacher or any kind of visionary or way shower, this kind of clarity can really, really help you navigate your awakening in a way that's very empowering and also, let's say, safe. Okay, sometimes we have to get into trouble. If you get into trouble on our path, to realize the lessons of where we weren't necessarily seeing things clearly and stuff like that. The other thing that is really valuable, and I'm saying this as a mom and as one who spends time with youth, is that my generation and younger, we crave multidimensionality. We crave it on a deep, deep level. We don't know it as that. I know that I didn't know it as that. It wasn't until I got involved with this work with Barbara did I realize this languaging. It really empowered me, this languaging, because it was the closest thing to what I was trying to get to that I couldn't put my finger on. So our youth are craving to wake up to this level of themselves. I know I was, and I didn't come across this work until I was adult. But if I came across it when I was a teenager or even younger, I just imagine what my world would have been like. I wouldn't have maybe made some of those decisions that created trials and tribulations in my life, So young ones really get this naturally, and you don't need to go through the intellectual parts of this at all. You just being in your awareness and holding space, and the young ones being in your energy, their natural curiosity just comes to you, and you'll be able to put words to things that they know but can't talk about, and you can hold space to allow them to talk about things that normally are discouraged because they don't fit the model of say the lesson plan or whatever the programming, the teachings is in your particular family, culture, or educational system. A beautiful, empowering process and bonding process for you and young ones. Like I said, it doesn't need to be intellectual at all. It's just a beingness. It's just, having fun in song, having fun in dance, but your awareness of other things happening while you're in the dance, that is what helps on a subconscious level, helps their subconscious bridge through yours to this other level of understanding. So it's really, I think it's a huge game changer for our youth to have teachers and moms and mentors that are aware of these kinds of things. The other thing that really helps is if you're a creative, this kind of clarity helps you, understand on another level, in a different kind of relationship, where your creativity comes from. Maybe you're extremely oriented to Syrian energy. So a lot of your art or creations will have beautiful structure and form and symmetry to it, perhaps. Or maybe you have a very creative way of bringing asymmetry into another kind of medium. Those are the kinds of gifts that come with one that has a deep resonance with Syrian energy. You also may, if you're a sculptor or songwriter or poet, that's a whole nother level of spectrum of gifts of resonance. And Pleiadians, for example, people who really resonate strongly with the Pleiadian energy, with the Pleiadian star consciousness, we think outside the box. Matter of fact, we have a hard time finding the box that everybody's in, and we just do something that's completely on our own terms and in our own way. And you know what I mean? And having this awareness of where that's coming from within you, that can help maybe create a different relationship to your internal stories that you have about your relationship with the outer world. For example, a lot of people consider themselves the black sheep of the family, right? And there's maybe some pain stories that we have about that, like not being accepted or whatever. But when you wake up to realize, oh, it's because I have this really strong resonance with this kind of consciousness, No wonder. No wonder. So it can help ease some of those relationships that have caused us pain in the past, knowing yourself through these lenses and these ways of being. Let's see. So how I like to use this particular teaching is in the chats that I do every Thursday, and that's because when you are exposed to this energy and you're exposed to the graphics and the transmissions and the things that we talk about, without one even realizing it, it just gives you a broader mind. It opens your mind up, and you can more broadly perceive things that maybe because of their emotional charge or intensity, you were like this before in relationship to. So I have something called the lunchtime chats that happens every Thursday. It's free on YouTube at the Life Body Academy channel, where we do an activation. Then we talk about topics and issues that are really significant for us healers and way showers, new paradigm visionaries, creatives, because we see things in a very different way. We relate to things very differently than maybe the general masses do. So I use this activation to help to open and broaden the mind. So we are able to perceive a new way. We're able to perceive that situation from a completely different angle than maybe we thought of it before. And really, that's what the chats are known for. It opens people up to completely different ideas and what I call a liberated perspective to the kinds of challenges they face on a daily basis. So learning how to do these kinds of activations is really significant, and it can be a gift that you offer to humanity. So I encourage you guys, this is open source code. This is open to the world. You do not have to have a teachy guru, any kind of permission to teach this. The invitation has already been out there for many decades, for a couple decades, and there's many people like me out there doing these things. So if you feel drawn to do this, for your own personal gain, that's great. I want to plant the seed with you guys. Is there potential? Is there a longing or a yes inside of you to not only digest this and liberate yourself personally, but also bring it out into the world? Okay. And so I just want to plant that question with you guys, because it might be a yes. It might be a yes. Okay. So before I get into what we're doing today, I want to talk about a little bit about what we did last week. All right. So last week there was a handout. Oh, I need the link to the handout. Okay, one moment. Let's pause for 1 second. I beg your pardon. I don't think I have the link handy. I thought I did, but I don't. Okay. So I put out a link. Yes, I do. I have it. Here it is. I put out a link in the Zoom in last week, and I'm going to put it again. This is the same link as this last week. So it has the handout for last week and this week in it. I'm going to go ahead and paste that. There we go. All right. And if you guys can share that with those on the YouTube feed, that would be very helpful. Thank you. So last week, we went over the axis. The axis is the axis of the 9 dimensions and how they relate to each other in that sort of form. And then and there was a handout for that. And I'm going to go ahead and draw the axis just because I don't have the file to bring up right now. Let me go ahead and do that. I need a darker color. So last week, yep. Sorry, my axis is in a fun house right now. Okay. All right, let me get back to that. Okay, so we have axis. You guys recognize this, yeah? Okay, so last week we did the axis, and there were encodements for each of the lenses. Okay, we went through the encodements. And then we talked about the keepers. and their role, and how some keepers are races and some keepers are actual star consciousness, like Sirius or the Pleiades, stuff like this. And then we also talked about a new understanding of what the definition of future. Okay. And because according to the Pleiadians, the future, remember, is a memory that has so much charge that we are compelled to visit it in the now. So this is so your future is actually created by your past. So in the here and now, and in this acceleration process that this planet is in, we are equipped with all the things we need to unravel those things with high charges in the past. And that could be ancestry, that could be in your Akasha, which is the records of your soul's journey. It could be something like that. You unravel the quantum that's entangled in those dramas of the past, so you can actually be truly more deeply here in the now. And in this acceleration time, it's actually ending that process of your future being decided upon by the momentum of the past. And instead, we unravel that and use our abilities to envision a future and have that inform our here and now, how that inform our choices that we create in the here and now. Okay, so we just changed from that plane, that linear plane of time, and turned it into, we stepped out of that linear plane and turned it into more of a spiral, a progression. Okay, so when you are living time in this form, you become extremely liberated, and you're no longer quote pressed for time. Okay, so those are the kinds of things that we talked about last week. And if you follow that link for the handouts, you'll have the printout, the viewable printout version. But in your email box, you're going to get 3 documents. You're going to get the axis with the encodements and the keepers, and then you're also going to get a capture that I've taken from the book 9 Dimensions via permission, copyright. Dear Barbara Handclough has a system on if you're going to use different graphics, what the copyright would look like. So that's what the second page is, and this is specific to the dimensions and how the lenses are located within the physical. And then the third document is a forgiveness practice, and that forgiveness practice is a tool to help you untangle those charges from your past. It's to untangle the emotional baggage, let's say, unresolved things of the past. So you can use that forgiveness practice to help with ancestor healing and clearing. You can use that forgiveness practice for yourself, for things that you regret or can't seem to let go of. It's a very effective way to step into forgiveness in a way that's multidimensional. It's not just for forgiveness as in this person, quit holding on to what that person does, you need to forgive them. It's not like this at all. No. This is stepping into forgiveness as a mystical practice, using your compassion as a superpower to not just liberate yourself from these entanglements, but to liberate all of those who were entangled with you. Okay. So this is where you bring compassion to all beings involved, and in that, those unresolved issues become full circle, and that quantum that was entangled in the past is now free to come back home to you in the here and now, and their quantum that was entangled in that is also released and can return to them in the here and now. Whether they're in a body or not does not matter. Okay. So those were the documents of the first week that link will take you to. And then there's an additional second week that has been added. And it has the title of The Canopy and Talking Trees. So that's what we are going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a different relationship of the 9 dimensions and how they integrate we integrate's not the word, we interact with in this 3D experience. And then we're also going to talk about the multidimensional nature of Mother Nature, okay, our natural world. And then I'm also going to go into trees, utilizing tree consciousness to assist you in your perceptions and liberating you from different blind spots. And then I'm also going to talk about the myths, the ancient myths of our past. So I've had the honor and blessing to work with some amazing, amazing teachers in my life. Barbara is just one of them. Masters have been coming on my path since I opened myself to it, not long after I learned about meditation and sacred mantras and tapping into my spiritual resources as a teenager. And ever since I started doing that, I would start getting dreams of different beings coming in and teaching me. And later on, what happened, I realized that a lot of these beings I was dreaming about are in body, they were in form. And once I realized they had a body, it was like the universe synchronized for me to actually meet them and work with them in person, which was really cool. So I've been getting mentored, let's say, by multidimensional beings for a long, long time in this life. Yes, very cool. Thank you. Thank you for that. So dear sister Starshine made the comment that every cell in her body is vibrating. Okay, this is a significant data set because so in that handout, the number 2 document that's in there, that is the extraction that I took from Barbara's book. This speaks directly to what she's talking about. When you're tuning into these dimensions, to these lenses, when there's a lot of data sets happening, a lot of interaction happening with the 2D lens, which remains in our subconscious until we remove our blinders, and then it's not in the subconscious anymore. But when you're getting data sets that are coming through on that 2D frequency, you'll feel it as vibration throughout your body. Have you ever heard a profound truth spoken and then you feel like you can feel your legs go right? That's what that looks like, right? That's when deep embodied truth is being spoken, and there's some aspect of you and your lens of perception that resonates with that. You see? Yeah, it's cool stuff. Okay, so the last thing is I will be talking about myths, the ancient myths. And the teacher that taught me about this is a profound teacher. And there's a lot of things that we studied, but one of the pieces that he brought forward to me that took me many, many years to understand is this idea that myths are stories that we have not yet seen through. Okay, so I want to dive more into that with you guys because we have myths. We are so blessed to have the myths of our past. We have, of course, in the East, you have very ancient texts like the Vedic scriptures and the different sutras and stuff like this. And of course, there's other cultures that have ancient texts as well. But I think the Vedic scriptures are the ones that go the furthest back in history. With the exception of the bone in Tibet, it's an oral tradition that they have, but their records go back 45,000 years. So if you ever have the privilege of meeting a bone monk, because they do travel and do outreach work, I encourage you to, if you get to sit in meditation with them, I encourage you to do that because they are carrying very, very ancient knowledge within their being. And they also travel with this herb mixture and they gift it to people, and that herb mixture has the records, this is on a telluric level, has the records that go back more than 40,000 years. So what they do, they create the herbal mixture every year, and I think it's at the spring equinox, and it's an entire ceremony that the whole village takes part in. And as you guys know, with homeopathy, those of you that practice that, they'll have this huge batch of the herb mixture, and then they take a handful of the original mixture from the year prior and put it in the new mixture. So this particular herb that they share, they are able to trace back 40,000 years that in that herb mixture. You see what I mean? It's connected all the way back. So there's deep telluric memories within that herb that they gift. And And you might wonder, like, what's that? What does that matter? It does matter because your subconscious is submerged within all of your cells, and every telluric, everything has memory. Water has memory, as science is discovering more and more. When you get into the more mystical teachings of indigenous lore, the wind has memory, stone has memory, mountains have memory, the lands have memory. And there is a way to slow your frequency down and put yourself into an altered state where you can come in sympathetic resonance with those telluric beings and tap into the memories. Okay. And it's never words like they tell you this beautiful story. It's never like that. Their memories are in the language of whatever their language is. So what will happen is that you'll make a deep connection like that. You'll meditate in the presence of this, and then you'll go into dream time, or perhaps another meditation will happen later, or something will actually happen in your meditation where you can feel the translation of the memories starting to come into your awareness. It takes time for most of us for that kind of thing, but what's important is that you make the effort to do that. You try. You are interested in connecting with that telluric realm, that 2D realm, and when you do this with sincerity and appreciation, they'll talk back to you. And then it's just a matter of figuring out the language. What are they trying to say? What's this taste in my mouth and this smell that I'm being exposed to? What's this saying to me? All you need is to have the intent and the curiosity, and then your subconscious will take care of the rest. It'll start bringing it forward in dreams and synchronicities and metaphor in the outside world. Okay. So memories are all in every one of these layers of perceptions, memories. Okay, so let me get back to the next drawing here. So this is the axis, and you have the encodements. And later on down the road today, I'd be interested to hear about your guys' experiences. If anybody played with those encodements, or maybe played with meditating or activating these pieces on their own. Okay, so first we're going to draw the canopy. Yeah, we need to make sure that we stay in the screen there. Okay. Okay. Point of this triangle is the core of the earth. It is the heart and mind of Pachamama, Mother Earth. And according to the work done by scientists of this particular realm, they have discovered that the core of the earth is an iron crystal. It's an iron crystal, which means it has hexagonal structures, a six-sided structure. And that could be six-sided star, but that could also be a hexagon as well. That's important because, as from yesterday, what was revealed, that frequency creates shape. Shape creates resonance. Okay, so when we experience something closer to this embodiment, this 3D realm, so if we start integrating with frequencies of 6 or of different polygons with that kind of with that sort similar resonance, that's something that a tool that we could use to help us sink in and slow down and tune in to the iron crystal core. And like I said, everything has memory. So when you sink into the iron crystal core, you're sinking into the deepest primal memories of the being currently known as the Pachamama, Gaia, Mother Earth. Crystals, as you know, holds memories, holds records. This is something that humans use to this day. So when you are sinking in and tapping into that iron crystal core, you reach a critical mass with that, your body will feel it. The very first time that I connected with the crystal core, I had a shudder. My whole body shuddered, right? And it was pretty intense. And later on, as the years went by, I realized that this was one of the first things that many energy medicine, like indigenous keepers, do with initiates, is bring them into the core, initiate them to into deep connection and resonance with Mother Earth, with the Pachamama. And this is a beautiful, beautiful process, because this is where we also receive initiations of encodements that equip us for our journey ahead. The feminine way of initiation is to welcome you, okay, embrace you, let you know how appreciated you are for being here, and then equipping you for everything you need to sail into the mystery. Okay, this is how the feminine way does it. Okay, many of us are very familiar with the masculine way of doing this, is where you're trained, you're prepared, you do something. After you do it, now you're initiated. You get the badge of honor, you get the gold star, you get the sash, or something. It's only after you have achieved something. So of course you need a balance between both of those. But I feel like in human society, especially in the West, that feminine part has been forgotten, and a lot of people feel like, they skip over the initiation part of "you belong here, thank you for being here." They skip over, emotionally and psychologically, that they are equipped with everything they need to live their purpose. A lot of people skip right over that. So we want to slow down and make contact with that. Everything you need, you are already gifted with. Okay. Everything you need to live your life of purpose and fulfillment, you already have to your access. Once we change our relationship to our internal story about our path, then, that changes the flavor of how we walk that path, right? Okay, so we have our iron crystal core, and then we have our telluric realm, which is that 2D. And that 2D lens is not just everything under the crust of the earth, but it's also everything under, from our skin in. So we are a very sophisticated telluric realm biosuit. Okay, very, very sophisticated. We have atoms and molecules that come together to create cell structures. We have cells that come together to create tissues. We have tissues that come together to create organs. We have organs that come together to create systems. And our biosuit is our systems nestled inside of systems, inside of systems, inside of systems, right? And our overall biosuit is much greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, so this is a magical vehicle that you're imbuing right now with your essence. And it's the telluric realm that gifts you that. Okay, it's the telluric realm that allows for you to be in this body and have this 3D experience. So 3D, as I said last week, I used to call 3D linear space and time. And as I've grown in this work and my understanding has shifted and changed, and this is a living, breathing body of work. So something that was so, or believed to be so 5 years ago, may not be now. And that's pretty much what's happened with this. Because of the definition, the Palladian's definition of the future, what I recognized was that our future is created by the decisions we make in the here and now moment. And the main influencer to the choices we make in the here and now moment are emotional. Okay, which means that time is more 4D in nature, because it is an emotional process. It's not arbitrary, it's not benign. It's not like a clock ticking time. And this is, and Einstein proved this in his theory of relativity, that time is relative. So time, we have 3D time, which is the mechanics of a clock, right? But actual time is way more malleable. It breathes, it moves, it's dynamic. And for example, I don't know if you guys have listen to some of the research and what the astronomers are talking about, NASA's mentioning, is that the spin of the Earth is speeding up. There's no more exactly 24 hours in a day. Okay. And they discovered this because atomic clocks are no longer as accurate as they once were, which is impossible. It is impossible for an atomic clock not to, to change, to vary at all in its decay. But so they were able to quickly eliminate the problem being the atomic clock. And so instead, what they looked towards was, the calculations and watching what's going on a celestial level. And they realized that the Earth is losing several nanoseconds every single day. That means the Earth is spinning faster and faster and faster. And it used to be like 0.0001 seconds, and now it's like 0.04 seconds. And so it's just increasing the speed. Okay, which means time as we know it is not how it used to be. Okay, it's a different resonance now, and this is significant for us because we have to adjust to the change in the resonance. We have to adjust to the change of the spin, because we are a nesting doll within the consciousness of Pachamama. We are here to manifest and explore consciousness through the lens of the dream of the mother, through the lens of the Mother Earth. So if she is changing her spin, she's changing her frequency, she's changing, right, her vibrations, that means the dream that we are unfolding ourselves within is also changing on a deep foundational level. Okay. You can see, you see, this is a completely different way of thinking about this data that we have access to. All right. So to me, because of these different things that I've observed, to me, the linear time is more considered the canopy, the 4D. Okay. And the beauty about this 3D experience is that, we get to experience individuation, we get to experience space. So it actually feels like you and I are separate from each other. You're living in that state, I'm living in this state, or maybe you're on that continent or in this country, and it seems like, the miracle of the internet is connecting us all, right? But through sympathetic resonance and on these other levels of who we are, there's no separation at all. I'm processing the same frequencies you're processing, right? Because we're all in the same dream. We're all in the same dream of the mother, the same frequency. So it's just, we have the space allows us to explore many different individual relationships, many different gifts of manifestation within this frequency. So these bodies allow for us to explore what this separation is in a platform, in a dream that is potentially beautiful. It's potentially a Garden of Eden. Now, consciousness has been locked down and hijacked for, many, many, many reasons, many ways for a long time. And we're waking up out of that. So we are now stepping into a time where humanity is to take up the responsibility of being a caretaker of 3D again. Right? A lot of our mythologies have disconnected us from the essence of what proper care, custodialship, relationship of the earth is, right? If you grew up Christian, you have the mythology that you were kicked out of the garden and you're now cursed to reap only thistles and thorns from the earth. That's not a very loving connection, right? It means, you're cursed, you're paying because you're a sin, blah, 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 right? I believe certain aspects of Judaism and Islam also have that in their mythology as well. So you have masses of people who, on a deep subconscious level, have in their mythology that the earth is not their friend. The earth ejected them, or, they got ejected because they're not worthy or whatever. And so because of that, we've lost our ideas of being custodians of this 3D realm. We are caretakers, just like the Pleiadian star system, the star consciousness of the Pleiades are space holders of our 5D field, our how we tap into joy, love, and creativity and infinite nature, right? So they caretake that. We caretake 3D. Anunnaki caretake 4D. So we need to reclaim our caretakership again. And when we do, we will create something that serves life, something that a reality that will benefit our children and our grandchildren and so on, because that is the truth of our humanity. That's the truth of our human nature. This is where we're thriving, okay? Versus the program that a lot of humans are living right now, which is surviving, right? We have a completely different relationship. We're waking up out of that. And there's a reason why I went on that tangent. Let's see if I can get back to it. Right, 3D. So once we embrace the get over our disempowerment and embrace the fact that we are equipped with everything we need to reclaim our custodialship of our 3D world, that means we can manifest what it is that we want. We can dream, we can pull things from dream time and bring it into the 3D world. We are in partnership with not just the earth, but we're in partnership with nature. We're in partnership with the cosmos. When we wake up to the reality that we're in partnership with all of this creation to create this reality the way we want it, we'll step beyond those disempowerment programs that have been informing our subconscious all these lifetimes, okay, and that of our ancestors. So, a lot of us, my generation and younger, a lot of us have stepped into new ways of living, and there's been a little bit of division in the generations, because maybe our grandparents or parents feel like we're rejecting the spiritual teachings or the religion or whatever that the family has been in. And yes, that is true. That is a painful experience to feel rejected like that. But even though we're choosing a different path because we're craving that multidimensionality and we're trying to satiate that thing that we can't put our finger on, it's like a deep drive within us. Even though we're not in that religion anymore necessarily, we still have the momentum of all that programming in our parents within us. So just because we don't practice it doesn't mean we're not affected by it. It doesn't mean that we're, the myths of those traditions aren't impacting us in our reality in some way. So this is where, the forgiveness practice can really be helpful. You can get past that division between you and maybe some family members or ancestry, and start bringing healing and liberate your ancestry from the programming of the different religions that were teaching them to shut down. And it's interesting. Religions are beautiful because they teach you about the beauty of God or prime creator. They teach you so many beautiful things, but as everything else on this planet, there's disempowerment programming along with the truth. It's like you get told the truth, but then you have like a little lie put next to it, and it's so subtle that it just gradually seeps in until you're living it, right? Living what the lie is. And these are interesting times right now. Humanity is waking up to just how long we've been misled and how misguided we've been for generation after generation after generation. All right, let me get back to the 4D. I started doing the 4D thing and I kind of got sidetracked with 3D stuff. So 4D. So this 4D canopy, imagine it at the macro and the micro. The 4D canopy is it's emotions, it's thoughts, it's beliefs, it's programming. So your mental field is immersed in the 4D, your emotional stuff is in the 4D, your subconscious and conscious belief systems are in the 4D. Okay. So that's, cultural programming, family programming, religious, mystery schools, whatever, all of that is within the 4D field. The lens that we have to perceive this 4D field and engage with it is our solar plexus. Okay. And the other thing about the 4D field is that macro and micro. And for example, a micro example of the 4D field is the work of, what's his name? Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton has done work where he's calling it the biology of belief. And the premise of this is that how you feel, how you be, how you believe has an influence on how your cells behave. So if you have a lot of fear and a lot of, say, heavy, dense energies within your body, within your being, your cells are going to pull in nutrients or reject nutrients. Your cells are going to not be so happy and vibrant. They're going to be in more of a suffering kind of mode, and maybe withhold, not pull in the nutrients that they need and stuff like that. But if how you be is happy and joyful and peaceful, then that energy in your body informs the cells to behave differently, where it takes in more nutrients, or it does what it needs to do to be more vibrant and full of life. Okay. It's really a beautiful body of work that he's brought forward. And I think it's a book called The Biology of Belief, if you're not already informed on that. So that's a micro version. Then you have a bigger version, and that is, let's say, the collective field around your continent or your country. There's certain collective ideas, thoughts, experiences, beliefs that are unique to each country, and it's because of culture, but personal experiences, family, all that stuff. And when you experience the culture of the East, and then you go to maybe somewhere, if you go somewhere further west, you'll notice that the collective feeling will be very, very different, even though it's still collectives of people. And that's because we're hardwired to pick up on these things. The thoughts, the emotions, the reactions, all this stuff is in the air all around us in this unseen bubble. We also have a field that's around us. And the other most important thing to recognize, and this is why unraveling intuitive blind spots, this is how I got into unraveling intuitive blind spots, is that we have a 4D aspect that is within, through, and around us. It's the field that's within, through, and around us. And it influences everything we experience, everything that we see, everything that we hear, everything that we taste, everything that we smell. Every sensory of our body is influenced by this 4D field, right? So however we frame things up in our belief system, the more rigid we are, the more blind we are to other things. So that means that 4D field is going to bottleneck or even eliminate data sets that we get from higher dimensions. All right. And then we have these higher levels that come through. Now in the handout, I have this not as a dotted line, but as like a swirly. And that's because there's a reason why here. I'll get into why, but there's a reason why it's like that. All right, so then we have our 5D, our 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D. Ooh. Okay, let me back this up a little bit so you can see the whole drawing. Mm-hmm. There we go. Okay, there's the whole drawing. All right. So, so this 4D field is the lens that we perceive all of these higher dimensional frequencies through. Okay. This 4D field is primarily where our blind spots live. Okay. And an example of, say, you're having a meditation and there's some events, there's things happening in your meditation. And it just so happens some of the things that are happening that are in your awareness, they might be visual. And maybe you get visuals of things that you have past associations with. Like maybe you see some beautiful sunflowers in the sun, and there's an interaction happening, and there's a feeling you're kind of going into maybe a bliss state as you watch this scene unfold. And then when we come out of our meditation, we start putting labels and definitions on the things that were in our vision. We have the feeling we had, of course, that's always a part, that's going to be a part of it, and that's a really important part of it. Because what may happen is that maybe the feelings don't quite match up with the images. That's a major sign for us when we're reflecting on the events that happened in either dream time or meditation. So say in reflection and with your feeling, that really good, beautiful feeling that you have, you actually start to associate it to, oh yes, this is a memory from when I was a kid and I hung out with my grandmother and she had sunflowers in her garden and we always liked, harvesting the sunflowers, and and doing the roasting process, shucking them and roasting them, or maybe that was like a cherished memory. So then we'll start to associate the visual and, the different things, imageries that were in that vision with things of our past or things that with what we know. But really what's happening is that you're getting data especially when you're in meditation and dream time, you're getting data from these higher levels of being. And what's happening is that this energy that's passing through your 4D field into your awareness is getting associated by your subconscious and your ego driver to certain things that you know. Why? It's because our ego driver in the perceptions that we're trained to be only does not allow for the unknown. We always want to put something in a category. We want to define it. We want to know what it means. You know what I mean? We want to frame it up to something that we can understand. And that serves really, that's against really how, that really is an opposite of what needs to happen. What we need to do, or the process that we're currently in exploring, is unlearning the need to be that way and actually getting ourselves to a place within, both psychologically, ego driver wise and energetically, our inner child wise, to actually go into the unknown and be comfortable with the unknown. Okay. We have been trained generation after generation after generation with our ego driver relationships and stuff to always categorize, understand, have command. You know what I mean? We take data and we turn it into something that that we can understand and say to another person or whatever. And this process here of tuning in and opening your lenses to these other aspects is the exact opposite of that. It's actually doing away with past associations and actually tapping into the feeling, the energy that will take you to what's behind. What is behind the energy? What is the energy behind what created those images? You see what I mean? And this is actually a lot of the dream work that we do in the academy. It's sinking into the energy of the dream. And the events of the dream have entanglements. So there could be things that need to be addressed or witnessed or whatever. But once we do, now we're more available for the vastness of our larger self that's transmitting something to us. Maybe it's transmitting encodements to assist us with a certain kind of healing, or transmitting encodements for a certain kind of a flavor of awakening, or a creative process that we're in. It all depends on what's going on in our lives. Oftentimes the solutions to things are getting transmitted to us by our larger self, our cosmic aspect, except the energy, we're so resistant to the solution. We might experience that transmission from our larger aspect in a dream as if it were a nightmare, because it pulls up all of the reasons why we don't find the solution or step into the solution. You see what I mean? So it's like all these transmissions come through, and whatever's going on in whatever limiting beliefs you have or attachments you have, they're going to show up in your dream. That's what you're going to be aware of until you practice unraveling those things as they come up, with the understanding that there's more that is behind that, and you're doing what you need to do to allow for the unknown to present itself. Most humans, because of our conditioning, are terrified of the unknown. That's the last thing we want to experience. We want to know, we want to feel like we have control, right? We want to have safety. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this is normally what we look for as humans, but our true nature thrives when we are being in the exact opposite of that. You see? So, and this is when we're in that place, this is where we really start to thrive in our humanity. We have so much more energy going into wanting to understand what's different. Like say people who are very different from us, we put a lot of energy and curiosity into understanding this odyssey, this person that's so different from us. We're really curious, versus how we're trained to be is put a lot of energy into what's wrong with that person or what's different about them, and the argument. you see, so we're quite literally flipping in this process. We're quite literally flipping the habits, the tendencies that we have as a collective. Imagine a world where we really celebrated and enjoyed the differences between us. Okay. It was no longer, peace wasn't achieved by homogenizing everybody. Peace was achieved by connecting and truly seeing and celebrating everybody. Yeah. So as we get past our limiting beliefs that we've inherited, that we've cultivated in our soul's journey, we will be open to these larger pieces of understanding of ourselves. Okay. Okay, so polarity. So this 4D field turns everything into good, bad, right, or wrong. It turns it into left, right, black, white, male, female, up, down. Okay. And this is, once we're aware of that, we can pause before we go on the reel about something being right or wrong. This is especially a potent tool when you can use it in a way where you filter through your own BS so you can truly take responsibility for something in your life, truly take responsibility for an event. It helps us when we courageously apply this knowledge. It helps us really step into our mastery, because we will no longer have blame in our world. We will no longer have victimhood in our world. We'll no longer have the perpetrator dance going on in our world. Not that we don't feel intensity or we don't feel suffering or pain, or, not that we don't have that. It's just that we have a different relationship to it. It doesn't shut us down. It actually serves as a way of looking at something within ourselves that gives us more choices, even more empowerment. Okay. So this kind of recognition of the polarity lens can be applied in ways that really deepens our empowerment in this world. All right. So 5D. All right. So when you are in the 3D plane and you're looking out from your identity of who you are, like you're looking out to the world behind your eyes, you believe you are the face that you see in the mirror. Okay. Like when you introduce yourself or when you meet people and they're like, tell us more about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Right. There's some certain things that you say that are pretty consistent. Like, I'm a mom. I do this for a living. I live in so-and-so. I'm the son or daughter of so-and-so. I'm from here originally. I live here now. You kind of like have a standard thing that you might say. Now, all these stories and labels are who we believe we are. We really believe we are that person. Okay. But once you step beyond this lens, once you get out of this lens, your mind, your perceptions need to be open to the reality that you are an infinite being in a biosuit. Okay. That you have no beginning. On a deep core level, you have no beginning and no end. This imbuement, this incarnation is one of gazillions. And maybe you are human for a lot of them, maybe not. Maybe you've only been human for the past several hundred times, right? Maybe you've been human only a couple times. Okay. Once you start to realize that there's existences and knowledge and experiences within you that are your experiences, that are not part of your face of who you think you are. Okay. Then you can start getting past this lens and engaging more freely with these other data sets. Okay. Now, when someone, I don't know if you guys have ever, in my process, when I've always known that I had many lives, but I never really knew anybody else who believed that too. When I was a kid, I grew up in a very conservative kind of environment, and everybody kind of had the same opinions about everything. So I had all these out of the box ideas, and there was no one to share them with, no one to talk about them with, or anything. So from a very young age, I knew that the world was bass backwards, and and the people around me, they were just very, very reversed. Everybody seemed like they're backwards. Even in church, I sit in I told the story before where I was like 5 years old sitting in a church pew, realizing that nobody in there, including the minister, none of them really knew God. None of them really knew who they were on a soul level. It's like, I saw that so crystal clearly at 5 years old. I had no one to talk about it with. And I imagine that you guys either have children or grandchildren that may be in a similar kind of boat. There's no language we have to express and share these things. And when there's no one to share these kinds of things with, we kind of like, put it in the back seat and chalk it up of, oh, well, so so this teaching about getting out from behind your face is very helpful, because then you can accept experiences, intuitive data sets that come from this lens, and allow them to actually have some sort of meaning or impact. So when I finally came across other people, when I finally came across other human beings that also agreed that we have many lifetimes, I could not wait to do a past life regression. I was like, oh, I want to do, I really wanted to do that. So, time went by and I found somebody to do it. And it was a profound experience. It was like that past life regression. It didn't make sense logically at all to me, but my whole body responded to the reclamation of those memories. My whole body had a reaction. And I ended up journaling pages and pages and pages of there. Only a little bit of it was the actual story of the different past lives. The rest of it was all about these insights that came when I came out of it, when I came out of the hypnotic state. It was like this data bank, this rich data bank was all of a sudden open and available for my awareness. And I was just writing. And a major part of the writing was encodements. I was, drawing all these shapes and symbols and stuff like this. So it's really cool when we're able to step out of who we think we are and recognize that we are an infinite being on a soul's journey. And that journey, from our perspective looking up, is one that never ends. It just keeps going and going and going. So with that in mind, taking it a step further, the being that is imbuing this biosuit, that is behind the eyes of who you think you are, knows death, knows these other aspects far more than it knows you, who you think you are. You see what I mean? It's like there's this aspect of us is infinite and knows that aspect, that experience, far more than it knows the experience of who we are behind our face. So this is a liberating thought, and it also is very sweet, because it adds in the specialness of who we are as a ego driver in a biosuit experiencing this world. Our spirit, our soul, our essence, whatever you want to label that, gets us out of bed every day to experience who we are, to experience ourselves, right? And we're stepping into an age where the base resonance of things are changing. So that means we are going through a massive internal rearrangement. So, and where letting go of your face comes in is that you can, it's okay to let go of who your face is and who you think you are, because there's so much more coming online. So I have a lot of past life memories now. Sometimes they come in through dream time. Sometimes they just, I'm in the shower and then the memory will just happen. And each and every memory that comes forward brings with it some sort of epiphany, some sort of download that frees me up inside myself, where I am no longer a certain kind of blind spot that was in my 4D field just completely dissolves, and I'm no longer hindered in that certain way. In shamanic terms, they call waking up to this aspect of you the little death. And the little death is where you allow the different facets of the ego driver that no longer serve you. You just allow that no longer serves your path and where you're going, where you allow that part of yourself to die. And it does literally feel like you're going to die. There's been times where I would have dreams about dying. I would wake up and I would have dialogue in my head, feeling like I'm about to die. And you know what I mean? It would go along. And many years ago, it would be months at a time. But now things are so accelerated. It's like days or weeks at a time. I'll feel like I'm I'm, dying, and then the actual internal ego facet death happens. And then I wake up and I feel fine the next day. You know what I mean? And all of that experience is no longer in my lens of experience, my lens anymore. And it's just like, how does that work? Why did it do that? Right. And it's because these ego driver constructs are energetic structures that are within us. And when they die, we experience, because we think we are who we think we are, we experience it as a personal death. Okay. So these constructs go deep, 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 deep. They shape our reality so profoundly, so profoundly. And I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed that if I'm highly charged about something, it influences everything. When I'm highly charged, like say something online, I will actually not really be able to read what's actually there. I'll end up reading things that exacerbate my emotional charge. It gets to be that strong sometimes, So, and this isn't good, bad, right, or wrong. This is just something to observe about yourself. When you have a big charge about something, just notice how you're receiving your experience. Just notice that. When we are really convinced that we're right about something, that is our big flag to check ourselves, right? When we're absolutely convinced that we're 100% right and over there, they're all wrong. Okay. That's our ego driver. That's our ego driver keeping itself safe. That's our ego driver keeping itself in the familiar. You see what I mean? Staying where it's comfortable. What's uncomfortable is saying, okay, this is true to my experience. And this thing that's the exact opposite over here that these other people are experiencing, it's really true for them. Right? So how can you be open? We need to rise up with the compassion, the larger aspects of our humanity, to have a curiosity and an interest to get to know about their experience that is so different from ours. Okay. That part of our ego driver that insists on being right, you diffuse the investment of all that energy and reassign that energy to your compassion and your heart space, then you're going to have more inner resources to reach out and hold space and listen to what this alternate perception is, this alternate experience. There are many, many experiences available to us in this world, and we're here to explore them all. So we can't fault someone for exploring a reality that's contrary to ours. They're just doing what they're meant to do. They're just doing their nature. We are doing our nature, right? We're being true to who we are. All right. So 4D field, keep going. So once we get beyond our face, who we think we are, those blinders that come along with that really lighten up in this 4D field. And we can be open to who we may have been many lifetimes ago, or we could be open to who we may have been as a non-human species. And this is super important because as a non-human species, there is profound knowledge and experience that we can benefit from in the here and now in a human body. For example, Barbara Hand Clow, she, when she originally wrote Pleiadian Agenda and did that whole download, she had to go through a lot of processing to even get that out onto paper. One of the things that she did was she went through this process of several hundred past life regressions sessions, right? And actually she wrote that was in the book, in a series of books, I think called The Heart of Christos or something like this. It's a trilogy. Anyway, so she did the work to get out from behind her face and start resonating with who she is on a soul's journey level, having all these different experiences, some of them human, some of them not. And because she was able to loosen that up within herself, she was able to take that step further, of course, explore the 9 dimensions with groups, but even beyond that, she was able to recognize that simultaneously to her existence right here, right now in a human body, she has another existence over in the Pleiades system. Okay. When you can be aware that you have an existence in multiple locations and multiple timelines, that this blows open so many layers of your perception. It really blows open your higher intuitive capacities. Okay. So, and I can't remember I can't remember how she said she discovered that. It may have been dream time, may have been meditation. I don't know. Maybe just a knowing came. But once she recognized that, there was an entire download, a spin of understanding that came with it. And she was able to integrate with that aspect of her. So what I'm saying to you guys, you want to explore this 5D lens so you can have access to the aspects of you that are not human, that are having experiences, and unravel the entanglements to help free up your life force, but then also integrate energetically with your quantum, integrate with that aspect of yourself. Because the skills, the knowledge, the insight of who you are on those other levels can benefit you in the here and now. This is really so. I mean, if you're a healer in any capacity, this will just blow your skill set out of, off the charts when you are reintegrated with who you are as a Syrian star system, with the Syrian energy or the Pleiadian energy or the Andromedan energy. The key here is integration, where that quantum is actually integrated into your biosuit. And now it's part of your subconscious, and now it's contributing into the manifestation of your reality. Okay. Because remember, when we manifest, 10% of it is our conscious mind. 90% of it is our subconscious mind. Okay. So when you reintegrate with who you are, with these non-human aspects of who you are, all of a sudden now in a more unified type capacity, your subconscious is coming from vaster level, right? With less limitations. And that is influencing what you're manifesting in the here and now. Cool stuff. But it takes work to get there. It really takes the willingness to surrender to get there. Thank you for that thumbs up, darling. Let me check by the way, I'm not checking for comments. I usually do. Yes. Thank you, darling. Thank you for that. Okay. So if you have questions, by the way, as I go through these pieces, jot them down. If you're very altered, I understand if you want to stay in the altered state. So, do what you feel you need to do. But if you are able to jot them down or type them out, you just put them in the comments, and I'll be sure to get to them before we wrap up today. And by the way, I need to do time check. Okay. Ooh. All right. Time's going by. All right. So the next layer, once you're able to step into and accept these other aspects of who you are, that's beyond the experience that you're having right now. We have the light body, the 6-dimensional. So this is the 6D is created by frequency, by sound. And we know through the study of cymatics that this is a thing that is truly manifest within our 3D realm. So, for example, there's a lore I heard many years ago. I'm trying to remember, maybe it was the American Sanskrit Institute. There was a teacher that talked about the Sanskrit language, the written part of the language. Initially, it's one of the first light languages, or maybe it's one of the only ones remaining, I don't know, but in that they would chant the syllable, and the vibration of the full body resonance of the beings chanting would actually move a medium across fine dust, and that's what created the letter of each sound of each syllable. So in that way, it was considered a light language. There's other languages that are thought to have come forward in that way. I think Aramaic is one of them as well, except that was light actually going into a crystal, and the language was projected out onto a wall or onto a medium of some sort. But what I'm getting to is that the actual map of your unfoldment throughout the Milky Way galaxy, all these lifetimes, all of these incarnational experiences, corporeal, non-corporeal, human, not human. Okay, this is all mapped out within your light body, and your light body is like a thickening of the mist, the mist of Platonia, I believe Barbara calls it. And so you have frequency that creates shape, and that shape is the coalescence of the mist of a thickness, a thickening, and it creates the shape. And then the shape goes down further, gets narrowed further into the soul's journey. And that shape is actually a consciousness that is exploring itself. So when you're looking from above down into the soul's journey from the 6D perspective, you're actually experiencing all of it at the same time. You're experiencing all the potential that your light body has to offer instantaneously. And what's really cool is that from our perspective, where we are, we can actually work with the light body, and we can actually reinform the light body. We can shift things within the light body. Okay. And I know this because of the different masters that I've worked with. There's an entire tradition based on transmissions to enhance your light body. Okay, so it's an amazing tradition. It's absolutely profound. It's very powerful, and it's all about cultivating what you need to cultivate so you can deliver these transmissions. And these transmissions in this tradition was all about birthing forward the new human, birthing forward the new human that is here to welcome the new paradigm, to actually manifest the new paradigm of reality in this 3D level. Okay, some people might call that ascension, though I think there's a lot of different variations in the ascension narrative of what that actually means. For me, ascension means us being in a biosuit and being awoke to our multidimensional nature. For me, that's what ascension means. Okay, because once we're awoke to all these levels of who we are, we think differently, we create differently, we educate our children differently, we treat the earth and each other differently. You see what I mean? We have an entirely different value system of living. And that is what's going to change the world. That's how we're going to change it, is that we have a totally different value system. We don't look at the earth with the lens of how we're going to reap the benefit, how to reap it as a commodity. We don't look at a giant forest and think about all the money we're going to make by chopping down the trees. You know what I mean? That's an old paradigm. That's an old value system that doesn't have a place in this new resonance that we're going into. So the wisdom keepers of the Andes were the ones that were all about this transmissions. There's 9 transmissions altogether that we process and embody, that reprograms or puts new geometry in our light body, right? So we start manifesting different timelines of experiences. Okay. And this was all to usher in that new paradigm, that new way of being. So in New Age circles, I believe in New Age circles, that's what they're talking about with the ascension narrative. Okay, so our light body, when we're from the light body going into the 5D field, all of your lifetimes are happening all at once, right? And there is such joy and beauty in creating each and every branch, each and every strand, life stream, okay, instantaneously. And so, say us humans, we're going in, now we're altering the light body, which means we're bringing new timelines in. Another way to alter your light body, besides, in addition to these transmissions, is to actually reconnect with your light body and go and bring it back into frequency before it took form, before it took form. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I'm missing. I'm missing the Plato. All right. So Platonia, what am I talking about? This is something that was theorized by the great philosopher Plato. And this is the idea that all matter is organized in a certain geometric pattern. And this is where he developed or talked about the Platonic solids. Okay. So if I add, for example, if I add just a few things onto this, like if I do this, I turn this into, okay, a 3-dimensional triangle like this, pyramid like this. This is the Platonic solid for water, I believe. Okay, which means the molecules, the H2O, the H2, the 2 hydrogens, and the 1 oxygen, when they bond in this shape like this. Okay, and then the molecules just keep growing and bonding with each other. And the base bond for water is this particular shape. And then there's a platonic solid. It's way too complicated for me to draw for carbon, for air, ether, stuff like this. Okay. So he taught that matter could not exist without the resonance of the shape, without the resonance of the form. And if you did not have the resonance, that thickening in the midst of Platonia, you cannot have anything hold its shape within the 3D experience. Okay. So if you want to reinform the thickening, if you want to reinform this shape, in addition to having the tool of these transmissions, you can also take yourself through meditation or shamanic journey, depending on where you resonate. You can go back into the frequency, and even go back even further into the all that is. You can actually touch the energy of the all that is and bask in that pool. And what will happen is that if there's an additional layer of your being, intent of your being that wants to come and join you in the here and now, when you re-emerge out of the oneness, your frequency, your core frequency will have more depth, more dimension, more tone to it. And that is going to change your light body. And that light body, of course, will create even more timelines of possibility to explore. So we have a lot of power of influence manifestation to our access here. We just aren't aware of it because we're trained to think about things in a certain way. And we really put a lot of labor and effort into understanding these certain ways. And then once they're anchored in as a truth, then we're going to be blind to all other things that counteract that or contradict this, right? So this is a beautiful thing to wake up to for us. And that manifestation thing, really, this is huge. Manifesting, all right. So manifesting, I used to kind of like think that too was an ego trip. And it depends on the way you're going about it. This is what I realized. For example, if I'm like, I really want to have a new outfit, or I really want to have, something material. I want to make this amount of money this year, or whatever, if it's purely out of ego driver satisfaction, there's going to be a lot of focus and energy necessary to create that. But when you're bringing creations forward that is aligned with the truth of your humanity, the truth of your spirit, it's actually effortless to bring it forward. It's just a matter of saying yes. Okay. It's just that the way our training and our programming has happened is that a lot of times we don't know the difference. We don't know the difference between the voice of our spirit guiding us towards something versus something of our ego driver wanting satisfaction about something. You see what I mean? Oftentimes we don't know the difference. This is why we have authenticity coaches, because people are so lost inside of themselves because of the way they were influenced in their upbringing and programmed and all this stuff. So this is a big thing to wake up to, because when you are stepping into the dream time, only that which matters to your spirit is what's given to you. You know what I mean? It's like only you are gifted everything you need to fulfill your purpose, not ego driver purpose, but fulfill your purpose of your spirit. So when you go into dream time, when you go into meditation, when you go into these altered states, that is what you're interacting with. What is important for your spirit, what your soul level self wants to experience and bring forward. So we are wise to align or discipline our ego driver to be a complement to what our soul purpose is, what our soul wants to experience in this lifetime. Because when we do that, we are becoming more congruent within ourselves. And therefore, when we manifest things, it's super easy and it happens almost instantaneously. Okay. When we are working against ourselves, which is what most ego drivers do, they are working against the desires, the purpose the spirit. And then we are constantly in conflict, which is another way to experience limiting beliefs, right? We're in conflict. So when we're in conflict, it's very difficult to create something because part of you wants it and part of you doesn't. and sometimes we lack the tools on how to get those two aspects of ourselves on the same team. So we both want the same thing, right? Okay. All right. So moving on to, all right. So this, how the 7D comes in through our lens. This is frequency. So frequency is very, very powerful. And when it comes to frequency, sure, there's tone, there's notes, and there's those sorts of things to be aware of. But most importantly, on this level, what's most important to be aware of is your intention. So you can have an intention while you're playing something. Let's say if it's an instrument or singing using your voice, that frequency, that sound will actually manifest. It'll carry your intention to the person or whatever it is that you're interacting with. Okay, so the indigenous, of course, many indigenous cultures also are aware of this. This is where they have drum healing. Practitioners will play the drum, and they're not just playing a drum and praying, though that's probably how you start. It's playing the drum to specific things in the landscape of the body, in the landscape of the soul. You're playing the drum directly to those specific things in that landscape, and then you start shifting things energetically that way. Okay. Same concept with using a rattle, the tool of a rattle. You have an intention. You're just not shaking the rattle randomly. You have an intention of the sound, of the vibration, the shaking up quality, energy of that rattle, and you're directing it specifically to some aspect of your client's body, or whatever it is that you're working with. It could be a nature spirit. It could be land that you're working with. There's no limits to this. So the same thing with when you get more sophisticated and start working with crystal bowls. So when they say this bowl is this note and it affects this, okay, that's a very basic start. You can bend that sound with your will, with your intent, with your love. Okay. So when you're playing and you're in a deep, blissful experience, and your intention is to ripple that bliss out through the realms or out to the people that you're with, okay, that's going to have a profound effect. Versus if you're kind of just in thought, you're thinking about your grocery list while you're playing, that's going to have a totally different impact. You see what I mean? So even though what you're playing is the same bowl and the same octave and the same note in both scenarios, when your intent is focused like that, it's way more potent than when your intent is just, in distraction. So sound is powerful. Sound, when you really use it in conjunction with nesting dolls of consciousness, I talked about the nesting dolls last time. So when you have sacred space within sacred space within sacred space like this, you can make sound so thick it can impact 3D objects. And this is some of the premise behind the work that the Tibetan monks and other monks have done using horns. They play the horns when they're in specific state of consciousness, right? And it's not just one guy playing a horn. We have a group of people, highly focused, highly disciplined, right, with their focus, and they are all utilizing the sound waves of those instruments to focus. And when they do that, they can lift boulders, they can lift objects. Okay, this is an ancient technology that's still alive today. Okay, you wonder why in the world aren't the powers that be embracing that and applying it? And it's because it requires a profound consciousness to allow that to happen. It requires a collective field to allow that to happen. Remember, this collective field has to be, enough people have to agree to open the field up so those frequencies in that way can come forward. And this is a profound way to influence matter. You can do this. Anybody can do this, really. All right. So you can even change the nature of different elemental beings when you're doing this with that holding space in agreement with other people. The example that I have is with fire. We used to do fire ceremonies twice a month for, I don't know, for well over a decade. Okay, because this is part of our practice and part of our training in that particular tradition. And every time we would have a sacred fire, we would use it in ceremonial workings for transmuting, helping feed our encodements, our transmissions, all this stuff to influence our light body. But one of the other things that was a major part of that ceremony was what they called taming the flames, or making friends with the fire. And in collaboration with all who are present, we have sacred space set, and then we use our eighth chakra or Viracocha to create another space. And then there's another space inside of that. So you had sacred space inside sacred space inside sacred space. And we would interact with the fire, giving offerings to the fire, breathing with the fire, singing to the fire, playing rattles and drums with the fire. We would do a lot of connecting with the fire, as in, I see you, like this, with the flames. And every time what would happen is that the flames would start dancing to our song, or the flames would start dancing to the rhythm of our rattle or drum. And as you made more offerings to the flames and paid more attention with it and get into sympathetic resonance with the fire, what would happen is that the fire would no longer burn. It would no longer burn you. Okay. It would be hot, but it wouldn't burn. So that means we were actually able to put things in the fire with a specific intent about something, and the fire would follow perfectly and beautifully along with our intent. And we can actually put something in the fire and it would not burn at all. Okay. Yeah. How does that happen? That defies all laws of physics, right? I remember there was a time when dear sister Starshine and I, we did a prayer bundle, and I think it was for the equinox or something. The entire thing was tissue paper, right? That's going to burn, but it didn't burn. When we put it in the fire, it just sat there, and we're just like, what's going on? Why? It's not burning. And then we're just kind of looking at each other, and the hours went by and it got so late. And eventually we had to go in because, we have our lives. We couldn't stay up all night. We have children and jobs and stuff like this. So it was like 3 a.m. We finally decided to come in, and we go in, have some tea. We look out the window and the thing is completely incinerated and gone. All right. The prayer bundle completely incinerated and gone. And the next day I was having a conversation with a dear Starshine, and he said, and I told him about what happened, and he laughed and laughed and laughed. And I'm like, what's so funny? What's so funny about this? And he's like, oh, don't you know, Pachamama, this is a prayer bundle for the earth. He's like, Pachamama considers it rude to watch her eat. Right? That's why I wouldn't burn. I mean, this was in the beginning of our practice, so we really weren't aware. That was probably one of the first prayer bundles we've ever did. So we got a beautiful learning from that. The energy, the consciousness of the Pachamama was there with us. She was hearing our prayers. She was receiving us. It's just there was something in that lore about it. It's not appropriate to watch her consume what we've offered. Okay. The other thing that would happen with this fire is that we could put our hands in it and pull the light to us and not be burned. So, all our little fine hairs on our arm, none of that would burn. And actually there's people who've taken pictures in ceremonies like that of when people are reaching into the fire and pulling it into them. And you can actually see a stream of light coming from the fire into the person's heart that they're pulling the light to. So nature is multidimensional. Nature is magical. It's just because of the blinders that we have going on here, we believe that it is what it is, right? A tree is just a tree. A squirrel is just a squirrel. Not necessarily. And those of us who embrace the role of being caretakers of 3D, and those of us who embrace the role of holding space for what is and what's possible in 3D, we are the ones who can lift the veil for others so they too can see just how dynamic and multidimensional the nature is. Try singing to a mountain sometime. See what happens. Okay. Really, it's a thing. So in your handout that link goes to, there is an exercise there to tapping into the multidimensional nature of tree. And that's the talking tree handout. Okay. You guys can play with that as you will. It's really fun. Nature is a dance of joy, and it's, the baseline of it is the dance of joy. So the more we can tune into that joy and allow ourselves to be free inside, the more available we are to see these dynamics. I actually had a tree connect with a friend of mine, and he told me this beautiful story. I thought it was such a cool story. I think it was a beech tree. So he was doing ceremony, and he was doing ceremony and stuff like this, and he his ceremony would just so happened to be near this large beech tree, and so he connected with the beech tree. And he said he felt there was like a conversation happening, though he didn't completely understand it, but there was a dialogue going back. And then he had this inkling that the tree, he wanted to switch places with the tree, and the tree wanted to switch places with him, just for the experience of it, like that. And my friend said, yeah, okay. And what happened was he felt this energy of tree just come right into his energy field. And the first thing he wanted to do was hoot and holler and dance, which he did wildly. Hoot and hollered and danced. And the part of his essence that wanted to experience the steadiness, the stillness, and which he got that night in dream time. The unfoldment of the conversation came to him in his dream that night, and he realized they actually did switch places. And that's why he was so excited about hooting and hollering, is because that tree was like, I'm going to hoot and holler while I can, right? With this experience. So my point with these stories is that the more we are open to the multidimensional nature of nature, the more we're in connection, the more we feel connected, the more we overwrite the story that we've been kicked out of the Eden. We overwrite the story that we're going to reap thistles and thorns, that the children of the sinner will pay, or the children of the father will pay for the sins of the father. We're going to overwrite those stories with these experiences that we have with nature. And when we override those stories, eventually it'll reach a critical mass where we come home again and recognize we truly are in an Eden where Mother Earth, Pachamama, gives us everything we need to unfold ourselves within her dream. Okay. So I encourage you guys to print that out and practice. And if you don't want to go to a tree and you feel more drawn to go to a body of water, a crook, a stream, I recommend starting off small, because these really big nature beings are very, very powerful, and it may be a little bit rough. It might be a rough ride connecting with them. For example, same Starshine, we're doing prayer bundles every equinox and solstice for different beings of the lands that we live upon. And at the time, I lived on Lake Erie, which is this great big huge lake. It's one of the Great Lakes in the northern United States. And we did our prayer bundle, and then we were walking to deliver the prayer bundle, and the energy gets so intense. It was like our ears were about to explode. It's like the energy, it was like we're about to burst into flames or something. It was so intense. And that's because that being, the mother of the waters, was with us, waiting to receive the prayers, and it was very, very intense to finish the walk to where we need to go to make the offering to the waters. So I suggest starting off small until you see where you are with the energy and stuff like this. My recommendation about singing to the mountains, though, that's usually pretty okay. It's only when you start calling on the mountains to be with you with certain kinds of work that could get pretty intense. So start off gentle, start off small. If there's a tree that you like to meditate under, or if you love a particular tree that you walk by every day or every week or month or whatever, connect with that being, connect with the being, and do the practice that's on that worksheet and see what happens. The more you exercise the muscles of these lenses, of utilizing these lenses and bringing this energy forward, the stronger you'll get. I know that when I first learned this work, it was like I've always known it. It's like, gosh, this was like riding a bicycle for me. and then that took me so far. And then when I started to actually reach the boundaries of where that resonance was, that's where everything that I learned came in handy. It was like all these tools were, I could really apply them to help burst through these limitations that I had in my energy, in my perceptions. One of the major pieces that I had blocks to was with the all that is, tuning in and having the experience of the all that is. And that was because in my Akasha, in my past life, I had a conclusion that there was conclusions because of trauma drama that God was, the idea of God was a manipulation, and that and that it was part of hijacking consciousness. So there were certain things in my Akasha that really poised me to reject that lens, the data set from that particular lens. And that, of course, cultivated belief systems in my here and now ego driver, right? The ego driver of this current life. And those blinders just built and built and built and built until eventually I had an event that happened in my life that blew the whole thing, that shattered the whole thing. But that's my style. That's how my journey is. It's like things happen, they culminate, and they happen with like sudden bursts, sudden changes. And my teachers told me that's why I was actually attracted to their tradition, because their tradition is the path of fire and lightning, which is extreme change very quickly. And so anyway, I explored that and I realized they're absolutely right. That's how my energy is. Not everybody's energy is like that. Sometimes your energy is more water-like, smooth and meandering and connecting like this. Like what's important is seeing the connections of everything. And other people may be more like how process energy, like earth, which is a slow but steady process. Okay. So energetically, you can work with the realms, with nature to dissolve and shift energies of things. You can, like I was talking about with that fire ceremony that we using that whole platform to transmute through fire. You can do a similar thing with earth. You can transform and transmute energies with earth. You can bury things in the earth. You can put things in water for them to dissolve. You can scatter things in the winds for them to move. I mean, you can use all of these pieces when you're in your multidimensional nature, because your intent is very powerful when you're in that space. So the wind is not just the wind anymore. Okay. Water is not just water anymore. It's so much more beyond that. And you can be aware of it and utilize these gifts of nature to help collude with you in creating the reality you want. It could be healing. It could be healing for yourself. It could be healing for your family or a beloved. It could be an opportunity to bring an opportunity forward. There's lots and lots of applications here. So circling back around to the practical applications to this work. Now, it may seem like it's, out there and complicated, but when you digest it and you start living and breathing with the reality of these lenses, you become in a much different relationship to your reality as you were before. It's almost like a quantum shift, really, because now you recognize things differently than the stories of the past, right? Oh, so getting to myths. Oh, I'm running out of time. Darn it. All right, getting to the myths that in stories. Think about the myths and stories that are of the lands you've grown up in, okay? The myths and stories that maybe your parents told you, maybe you learned in your culture, maybe you learned in church, okay? A myth is a myth until we recognize the truth that it's telling us. And this is really beautiful, because this is when we recognize the truth has been in front of us in plain sight the entire time. It's just us that have been blinded to it. Okay. So the truth of this reality that I'm talking about with you, it's in plain sight all around you. You just don't recognize it as that, because when we have certain scenarios or things in front of us, we judge or relate to it by the stories that we've already been told, that other people have told us, whether they be myths of your culture, myths of religion, or, urban myths, stuff like this. So these myths are beautiful, beautiful potentials for us to wake up to. All right. For example, the myth of the universal tree, right? Many, many cultures refer to trees as cosmic doorways. And I had a whole series of pictures. I'll see if I can post it somewhere so you guys can see these pictures. Like in Australia, there's these trees that have these really intricate carvings on the inside of their bark, where it's exposed, where the inside of the tree is exposed, and it's considered a portal to cosmic realms. The Celtic lore also utilizes trees as representative of the upper, lower, and middle worlds. Okay, you have Druids also speak about trees. I also saw the Persians have beautiful tree of life versions in their artwork, in even their Persian rugs. These are ancient representations of trees and stories that have been passed down generation after generation after generation. There's a very common shamanic technique to traveling the different realms by going into a tree, working the tree energy. So these myths and lores that we have about trees are stories that perhaps give us ideas, but they're also techniques for us to open to other things. Okay. We can actually open to a new story, a new myth to see through by working with a tree, by working with recognizing the truth within the story. And with this 4D field, we have stories that can open us up, which is what usually are the myths that have been around in humanity for long periods of time. Those are normally stories that open us up to ideas and thoughts and imaginings that we weren't aware of before, that weren't there before. And we also have stories that shut us down. Okay. So you can feel in your body if you're interacting with a myth or a story that is opening you up, and you can feel if you're interacting with a story that's shutting you down. Okay. So the myth, going back to the myth of being kicked out of Eden, this is a story that shuts you down. It shuts all of humanity down. I mean, how does it feel to be told, you're a sinner? How does it feel to be told that your ancestors really screwed up and got kicked out of the garden and now you're going to pay for it, right? That kind of frame up doesn't feel good. It doesn't open us. It actually closes us down more, versus the story of the great mother called out a love song, and look, it is you who answered. Welcome, 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 star child. Welcome to this place. Come, be with us, sit by our fire. Let's share our stories. Let us gift you everything you need to unfold yourself in this realm. Okay, so that's a story that opens you, and you can feel the difference in your body, I'm sure. Okay. All right, so with that, I'm going to pause, and if there's any questions, go ahead and copy paste them into the chats. Or you can unmute yourself. I think you can unmute yourself. I'm not sure if that's
Yes.
how.
If anybody have
Brad.
any questions, they can raise your hands. Okay, Shanu.
Hello, Shanu.
You have to unmute yourself.
Oh. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for yet again another beautiful session. I had a question about when where did I write the question? Sorry. Something about that you talked about something that, we don't let the frequencies to come in, we become rigid or something. So how can we not become that? What can we do?
Haha, yes, yes. Well, I guess the first thing is to notice how you habitually reject something or how you become rigid, like what kind of dialogue happens in your head. Usually people will want to make something wrong, or you just kind of like have an aversion to it, like, ooh, right? So the first thing is to notice how you're feeling and what your thoughts are. And then so our souls, our essence is really taking care of this by always presenting things to us in our daily lives. So you can just take anything that presents to you in your daily life where you have a charge or an aversion to, and you can start alchemizing it. So the exercise that I gave you guys with the talking trees and connecting with elements, you can start playing in that way, or you can do something like with the forgiveness practice. And because what that is doing, it's subconsciously there's emotions, there's potentially trauma, there's stuff deep inside that has framed up that experience. So you have an aversion to that person or that experience, right? So you would go inside of yourself and bring that part of you forward that has that aversion, and do something like a forgiveness practice with it. And it's so therapeutic, even to just draw up, be willing to look at the part of you that is in judgment or an aversion to that person or event. And just by saying, I see you, I accept you for being like that. Thank you for showing yourself to me. Just that alone shifts a lot. Okay. And then move forward with the forgiveness practice as appropriate. And then once that charge lessens, then you're not actively participating and holding the blind spot anymore. You're not as attached to it subconsciously as you were before. And then now you can take a breath and be like, okay, what else is here that I wasn't seeing? What else is here? You see? So you'll know how you feel. You know the effectiveness of your work by how you feel when you're presented with things. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Is it okay if I ask one more? When you were talking in between, I was just, I had my pencil and I was writing what you were saying. And it just started circling like this.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I don't know what it means. First it went like this.
Yeah.
Then it went, started from here, and it's going like this, and I could not stop myself.
Cool. That's a real technique. We use that technique in the academy, actually. I know. It's cool. It's totally cool. You're tuned into that. I'm going to erase this a little bit so I can explain, because this is a great thing to explain, actually, because this tool is so deceptively simple but effective at the same time. So you know how you every night you dream. You may not remember your dreams, but you have a feeling. There's just a feeling there. So what I have people do is, instead of trying to flesh out the visuals, the story, instead of taking this vast, dynamic, hyperdimensional experience and trying to digest it and put it into linear understanding, which is words and all that stuff, instead do exactly what you just did. It's like, okay, I have a feeling in my dream. Yeah, there it is. Okay. And you just follow a feeling, and your hand moves. Hand just moves as you're following the feeling and where the feeling goes. And because you understand nothing, your mind won't get in the way. Okay.
Okay.
So then what happens is that the scribble is holding an energy. Okay. Now you're not ready to understand it yet, or else you would understand it, right? So what happens is that we digest energy, and once it's digested and integrated, then the understanding comes to our mind. Then we can touch it with our awareness. But our body, our energy system has to digest it first. So you got to download from your own spirit, and this is your process. Okay. So what you could do to keep that paper around, And if there's spaces that maybe, I don't know if you're a doodler when you're talking on the phone or whatever, you can just start doodling, start doodling in your little energy drawing, like with different colors. You start filling it out, make it like a random piece of art, start doing stuff like this. And so what you're doing is you're paying attention to the energy. You're bringing your creativity to the energy that this drawing has just captured, right? And then maybe I want to make some stripes down here on this one, right? And then, so you just start playing with it. And what's going to happen is when you tap into your creativity, your subconscious is going to start manifesting things. You're manifesting from that level. So that you're doing your part. You're digesting this energy at this point by adding more creativeness to this. And then maybe you want to sleep with it under your pillow and go to the next step. Yes. So what we do in the academy is that someone will bring a doodle, and we'll feel into the doodle, and we'll all contribute to the kinds of things we sense and feel and see in the doodle. And then the dreamer that actually did the doodle will pick the one that has the highest charge for them of the feedback that they got from the people. And then we would track it. We would sync into that. And it's amazing the stuff that comes forward, the transmissions from their own spirit gets revealed from this. So
I can
cool.
just any random color or whatever I can do, or like I can, as you said, or
whatever feels right. Whatever feels right. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's no, when it comes to creating like this, there's no wrong way. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for bringing that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deepti Yadav.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for the wonderful session once again. Today it was very, very surreal. Like you talk about integrating, I think in the second session, I was really integrating the knowledge. So what I wanted to ask you is that sometimes during meditation or chanting, we do get information download. But like you said, it could actually be from, maybe ancestors, maybe from Earth, maybe from different dimensions. So is there a way of knowing where the download is coming from, especially when it's in knowledge form? You said like dimensional download could be more in the feeling form, more kinesthetic form.
Yes. So this is where where it's really worth your while to feel into and experience your lenses individually. So there's some practices that you could do for this. So maybe, all right, number one, if you're getting things from the cosmic order kind of sense, that's coming through the stellar networks, which are the galactic highways of light. So when you are engaged with the galactic highways of light, start to learn how that feels for you. What is the feeling? What's the state of being? What are the sensations? What are the flavors? Right. And then you get to know that you practice it with intent. So say today, you're going to wake up today and you're going to focus on the 7D frequencies. You're going to focus all of much awareness you can allow to see everything through the lens of your 7D field. Right. And then you're going to just notice how life is when you do that. And then wake up the next day, say, okay, I'm going to really focus my attention on my 2D lens, and I'm going to experience everything through the telluric flavor today. Right. And then you experience your world with that intent. And you'll notice things will be different. Your husband that you see will be completely different when you're looking at him with your 2D lens versus your 7D lens, I guarantee. Okay. So you'll notice different things. And so this is a way to cultivate the experience of knowing, so you can recognize, oh, this feels like this kind of energy. Oh, this feels like this kind of consciousness. Like you'll be able to identify the feelings. Because like when you're speaking with a mountain being and getting that kind of energy, it's very, very different than when you're in connection with a Pleiadian ancestor, right? Very different flavors. But you don't know until you experiences, so you can learn how this is what this feels like, this is what that feels like. So when you're in a situation with a group of people and you're going into those altered states, you know yourself more. You see what I mean? You know how you are in relationship to certain things in a way that you didn't have before.
So how long should you ideally sit with one kind of energy, or you can experiment with one or more at the same time?
Yeah, it depends on your intent. If it's to create clarity, to know your lenses, I would suggest one at a time. or, one at the beginning of the day and another one at the end of the day. You can split it up like that, but mainly one at a time. That's just because you really want to get clear on what those kinds of data sets feel like for you. That's the reason why. Yeah.
Right. So maybe like an 11-day, 21-day period, something like that, practicing it daily till you get the hang of it.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. I had a small question. You said regarding talking trees. So can we connect with something smaller, say maybe like a piece of wood or maybe a crystal, or the energy is just not the same in there?
Right. Well, crystals, you could definitely do it with crystals. You can do it with small plants. See, the thing is about trees is that their consciousness is older. When you're dealing with a young plant, it's like a baby,
Right.
So it's different than a tree. Especially when a tree is growing up in a forest with other trees. It's been educated by the trees around it, so it actually has wisdom and knowledge on a tree level of the ancient trees. Because they pass down their wisdom. So I would suggest a tree over a plant. Though there's many healers that have profound connections with plants, like medicinal plants, like tobacco and other things. And there are teachings for sure to happen with that. I just want to start you guys off with something that was a little bit easier to work with. If you already have the skill to work with a plant, then try it, experiment, play,
Thank you for answering my questions and for the very insightful session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, darling. Thank you.
Deepti.
Hello. Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for the very intense session. It was very, very intense. So how much intense I can say that my pain got healed. There was some pain in which I was suffering from so many days. So it got healed. And
Wow.
literally I was feeling still I'm feeling lot of energies throughout my body, and each and every cell in my body is vibrating. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Awesome.
Really,
Thank you for that.
Like I'm just feeling that energy is flowing in the downside, and I feel I'm just getting the intention that place is filled with light.
Lovely. Thank you for that. What's that? Can I ask, what is the drawing that is behind you? There's a beautiful art mural behind you. Okay. That's lovely. Thank you.
Krishna.
Beautiful. As a child. Krishna as a child.
Yes. We have kids at home, so for them we just kept it on the wall as a wallpaper.
Yeah, we have a grandma that listens to the chats that we do on Thursday with her young ones, and she feels that especially there's one particular grandchild that she has that's very gifted and open and is naturally multidimensional, and she says, I mean, he's like 3, right? But she says he loves the chats. He loves this. He loves listening to me talk about the dimensions. So just being in the presence of all this is really beautiful. It's supportive and activating for them. So it's wonderful that you do that in their company. Thank you. Thank you so much for your feedback, darling.
Nandita.
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for all this beautiful wisdom. And I'm sorry, I'm not well today, so I have cold and all. I'm not in a condition to show my face. I can, but I'm really down today. But beautiful. Okay. And, I'll share my experience a little bit, and I need some wisdom. So I connected to trees somehow. There was 100-plus-year-old oak tree that was in my previous house, and I still going with it. It just happened. I read a story about this kid who was really sick at the age of 9, and his father went everywhere looking for treatments, and then a friend visited them and said that, why don't you go and hug a tree, and then the father was like, oh, this is all rubbish. But the kid was listening to it because he was helpless, and he started hugging the tree. And then he started quickly improving in health. And I've told this to a lot of people around me who are not
Mhm.
well is like start
Mhm.
connecting to trees. So that started resonating with me. And also the ocean. So for a very long time, I was like, what do people do on beaches? Right? After some time, it's like you're just staring into nothing. But then I went to India, and I'm in US, right? I'm in Virginia. So I went to Goa, and I'll walk every single day on the beach next to my hotel, and I'll talk to the mother ocean, and I could see
Mm.
the waves coming and touching me in the night. I know it's
Mm.
tides and stuff, but the feeling was so surreal that I had to tell, okay, enough, I have to go to bed, I have to go. All right, you're just so attached to me. For that 5-6 days, this was like when I was leaving, I had to say bye. And there's a whole connection. So I was just resonating with whatever you were discussing today. The question I have
Mhm.
is, because I have had my gurus come to me, masters, gurus, and they're like Indian gurus and stuff, like Sai Baba and all, if you've heard. They came to me like on their own, and they're like, okay, figure it out who I am, and I'm here to take you further. Because all my life as a kid, I was pretty lost, as in, so what's after that? Those kind of questions kids don't think about. And I was like, I was very confused in school also, where now I feel rested with my guru. So I've been preparing as I move forward. The question is, I've surrendered to the guru as a divine source, right? Do I still need to tap into different energy, or is that guru my guiding source to everything? And that
I
I
would.
take the guru as in, that guru is not like a guru preacher guru. I
Mhm.
take him as divine energy. Like these gurus are not like preachers, and they tell you what to do, what not to do. You sit in their presence,
Sure.
you meditate, and it's a blank. Uh, it's like a divine source, and it's a
Yeah.
focal
Yeah.
point for you to tap into divine energy.
Sure. Sure. Well, and that role is very relevant until it's not. You know what I mean? Because there's a point in time where you wake up to who you are on a level where the entire every moment of your life is the teacher, is the opener, is the divine source looking back at you. So I would say that it's so until it's not. And you'll recognize when you start getting, experiencing limitations, or experiencing, experiencing things where, there is something more, and this particular technique isn't working for me anymore, or this particular focal point isn't working for me anymore. You just notice what you notice around that. None of it's good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm not saying this at all. It's more about when you open up to who you are more and more and more as that infinite being in a biosuit having an experience. The profound realizations happen with interacting with nature, with interacting with aspects of yourself that aren't human. You may wake up to an aspect of you that is an ascended being, but in another star system, or as an ascended being in another galaxy. I mean, it sounds out there because it is, but it's not at the same time, because when you connect with that aspect of who you are that has ascended either as human or some other kind of being, like and become, maybe the word is enlightened, then, and you start reintegrating, unifying within yourself that level of your being, it's like at that point you reach a place where your light, your infinite light, you are now open to your own infinite light being your teacher. You know what I mean?
And I feel that
it's
I already feel that. I feel like
okay.
There's a divide in the beginning when you just surrender to the supreme energy, or whichever the focal point, right? We are humans, we need some focus, right? And then eventually, if
Yeah.
the separations become different from what that energy outside is, then the energy inside you, like you become him, and or the source and energy, and then it's the duality changes, and it changes to I am form, like I am, but I am him also, and he's but still they're focused, because
Yes.
this is what my role has become, to gather everybody and bring to a focal point where they can also focus and start feeling I am, because everybody's separated right now from that being that's within us, right? Final being. That's all we are. It's all a bundle of experiences we are living through that we have to go out of and figure out. It's just the programming. aspect just
Yeah.
takes over.
Yeah, you're right. That programming, the subconscious program really does take over unless we, we're doing this work, and then it eventually subsides, especially now in the time of the acceleration. People are waking up out of it big time, very quickly. What used to take 20, 30, 40 years to cultivate the discipline, the focus within the human experience, people are now doing it in 3 and 4 years, those of us who put all the work in all those decades. Yeah.
But that's beautiful. That's really nice, and I'm seeing that around too. People can resonate with the same frequency. There's other question I have. I'm sorry, I'm taking a little bit more time here. Is there are still few people that you stay in that being and you stay positive and you're just in that positive energy and positive aura and stuff, but then there's some people that come into your aura and all of a sudden you feel kind of drained and you just don't want to interact. You're forgiven, you've done everything, but still you have to face them, because we are living in a society. Do we need to totally disengage with them or still stay connected and stay focused on ourselves? How do we protect ourselves as an aura?
Yeah. So that all right, that question is actually a pretty large body of teaching that we do in the Academy. There's more going on than what we realize. And right, the forgiveness practice can take you to a point, but there sometimes, there's other things going on. There's on a energetic level, things that are happening on a 4D level, things are happening. And if you're impacted by somebody, that means there's still more work to do within yourself. It's just that the right question hasn't been asked, or the energy hasn't been reintegrated for a new relationship to emerge within your awareness. And usually that integration doesn't happen because there's some part of us on a subconscious level due to soul's journey or whatever, that is working against the integration. So, and like I said, this is a huge body of work. This question, this is a massive mouthful what you just asked. So I'm just trying to give you a summary.
No, I get
a summary of it.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? Okay.
Yeah, no, I get it. Your soul is talking to my soul, I guess. I'm just getting what you're saying. So
yeah, you get, yeah.
So I started practicing. So this is how I have functioned, because I don't want to focus in 10 different directions, because then you lose track, right? Then, you have to surrender at one being, whether it's yourself or if it's external for that point of time until it becomes you. The thing is, like, you showed up in my life. I take it as a divine grace that today you are supposed to give me the wisdom, and I'm going to take as much as I need it from you, and that's how I function. All of a sudden, there's this concept of Ho'oponopono just started chasing me like anything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then I started practicing it, and it's so beautiful, and it's so simple, and it's so liberating. It brings you back to the present. Starting, that whole shackles of where you're chained into that program. And that's what, see, the thing is, when you were talking, I'm like, okay, I already, somewhere my soul knows this knowledge. It's just that you are reiterating it in front of me because you were supposed to do it today. And it is so beautiful. I'm sorry.
Cool. Thank you. No, that's great. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you brought something into the view that I want to also mention to people about trees. Oak trees particularly, those are extremely high vibrationally, high level consciousness trees. Another kind of tree in the West, because there aren't oaks like there are out in the East, is a eucalyptus tree. And how I found out about that is that there is a former psychiatrist here in the East that was diagnosed with a fatal bite of some sort. He was in the jungle, got bit, and he woke up to the doctors taking bets on how long he was going to live, and like the shortest time was 3 hours and the longest time was 3 weeks, right? So they pretty much said, you're done for, buddy, go home and die. And months passed by and he didn't die. And what happened is that he noticed, he started to crawl out of bed and lay underneath the oak trees in his yard. And he ended up healing himself and bringing all of his capacities back online, so he could walk again, and he can talk again, and he can chew, and he can, he regained all of his faculties by just doing that daily practice of laying and meditating and energetically connecting with the oak trees in his yard. And to this day, he still does this work. He wrote a book called To Be Healed by the Earth. His name is Dr. Warren Grossman, if you guys want to check him out. Beautiful story, healing story that he shares. And then he goes on to teach people how to connect with nature, trees and different aspects of nature as well. So what she was talking about, to be healed by a tree, this is, others too have done this for themselves, and it's worked. So, all right. Well, boy, time just flew by, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there is no more questions. So
okay,
thank you
great.
again for such an intense session, Christina.
Thank you. I know everybody's saying intense. I'm sorry it's so intense. It's just
No, but that's good. It's the whole week we digested it, and I think the next week you give us new information. So that's pretty good. So thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. So there's benefit to it. The intensity part.
And we will see you next week.
Wonderful. See you guys next week. Do check out those handouts. Both week handouts are available. And if you can, darling, share those with folks so they in the YouTube to make sure they can have it too.
Yes, I think Soumya already posted that link there so they can have it.
Oh, she did. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Wonderful.
She's a rock star. She's on the top of everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much, dear Rockstar. And thank you everybody for being here. This is really a privilege for me to be able to share this with you guys. And I'm deeply honored. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week, same time at the same login credentials. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.